Congratulations, you just reached level 80 in Guild Wars 2. But what should you do now? Well, there's quite a lot you can do. In this top 5 video, I'm going to give you a couple of things you can do when you reach level 80. Hey there guys, I've been reading your comments on some of my videos about the endgame in Guild Wars 2, so I decided to dedicate a video to it. Some like it, some dislike it, so I thought I would compile all these comments into just one video and talk about the things you can do at level 80 in Guild Wars 2. I'll also have a look at the things that I find lucrative and very fun to do at level 80. This video will be divided in 5 different segments, which should last about 2 to 3 minutes. This way you get a general idea of what the game mode I'm talking about is and keep the video short and simple. But I'll still be able to talk about some extra details in the process. Before we start, if you have any questions during or after the video, please leave them in the comments. I'll try to help you out the best way I possibly could. And for more Guild Wars 2 videos, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more Guild Wars 2 related content. A like on this video is also very much appreciated. And I know that some of you watching are free-to-play players of Guild Wars 2. So I'm going to start with the things you can do as a free-to-play player. Even though you might be a free-to-play player, stick around to see the stuff that you can do with the expansions. But definitely, don't feel obliged to do so. I've already have been rambling on for far too long. Alright, let's dig into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is Fractals of the Mists. Fractals of the Mists is one of the most popular game types you can do when you reach level 80 in Guild Wars 2. Although it is easy accessible, it can be quite challenging. I recently dedicated a complete video guide to this, so I'll briefly go over the basics right here. Basically, Fractals of the Mists is a series of mini dungeons that get harder every tier. They also require you to upgrade your gear to further progress in this game mode. In later Fractals, it requires you to have ascended gear because this gear has an upgrade slot to protect you from agony. Agony will hurt you in lower level Fractals, but it won't be deadly in lower level Fractals. In later levels, it will instantly kill you, and most of your teammates won't appreciate that. Rewards from Fractals of the Mists can differentiate quite a lot. For example, you'll have the chance of getting ascended armor and accessories. But the chance of getting these is not very high, but it's not totally uncommon either. From completing a fractal, you'll also get fractal relics, which can be spent for extra permanent bonuses, armor, and crafting recipes. You'll also have the possibility to get exotic items, which can be sold for money. Some can be worth quite a lot, while others are just worth a couple of silver. There's also a ton of achievements you can get in Fractals of the Mists. These can grant you special prestigious titles, armor, and skins. There's also a legendary backpack you can unlock with the Fractals of the Mists collection. I've had this backpack for quite a while now, and I still think it's one of the coolest backpacks in the entire game. And this legendary backpack brings me to the next thing you can do as a free-to-play player at level 80. And that is crafting a legendary weapon. You might have thought that this was a feature for people that own the expansion, but this is certainly not the case. Although some legendaries can only be obtained with an expansion, you can still craft and collect the core legendaries. Actually, the core legendaries are the majority of legendaries in the game right now. These legendary weapons require some effort and determination to obtain. For example, it requires you to have the gift of exploration for a certain component. This might sound like gibberish to you, but it basically means that you have to explore the whole world of Tyria, which is the entire core game. Every vista, every point of interest, every heart, etc, etc. And this is just a small part of what you need. But what you'll get is worth it. Trust me, you'll get an unique weapon skin that differs a lot from other weapons. This legendary weapon can also swap its stats out of combat. So when you're changing your build around, you don't even have to change your weapons because you can just change the stats on it. I actually got a legendary weapon myself, Nevermore. This legendary weapon is not among the core legendaries, but it requires you to have the Heart of Thorns expansion. It took me quite a while to craft, but it was worth it in the end, since I can use this skin on my alts as well. On the other hand, I know that some people almost have every legendary in the entire game, so I guess it just depends on how dedicated you are. A quick note about legendary weapons here. While free-to-play players of Guild Wars 2 can craft a legendary weapon, they'll still have to buy or collect the precursor weapon. This weapon is used in the process of making a legendary weapon. It could also be hard to obtain when you just reached level 80. This is all while players that have an expansion can get the precursor weapon with a collection. The collection is a easier way of obtaining a precursor weapon, but trust me, it'll still take a lot of hours to get. Don't be discouraged though, there are actually quite a lot of free-to-play players with a legendary weapon. I'll leave the Reddit threads of free-to-play players who obtained it in the description. Now we're going to slowly make our transition to the content that you'll get with an expansion. Let's have a look at meta events. You probably know what meta events are by now. You basically see them on every map in the entire game. These events tend to pop up in different frequencies. Some might start every 10 minutes, some might start every 2 hours. But why would you want to do meta events at level 80? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Depending on the meta event you are doing, they can grant you quite some money, some achievements, special skins and prestigious items. For free-to-play players, I would have a look at world bosses and maps like the Silver Wastes and Drytop. The Silver Wastes is a map released in 2014 and it has a pretty cool meta event where you have to destroy the Mortem Vinewrath. Some players are convinced that this is the best map to make money on with the meta event and the treasure chests combined. For expansion players, I would say that most of the Heart of Thorns maps are pretty lucrative. My personal favorites are Dragon's Stand and Verdant Brink. But you should definitely check out Auric Basin and Tangled Depths too. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that Auric Basin can grant you the most money by just doing the main meta event and looting the chests at the end. For special items, I would go to Dragon's Stand, simply because you can get crystalline ore and trade it for armor skins, runes and mini-pets. You might be wondering, what about the Path of Fire meta maps? They're pretty fun, and they do have a lot of lore and achievements tied to it, but I don't find them very lucrative. So I would not go there if you're just in it for the money. Go there if you want achievements, complete collections and unlock special skins. But if you bought the Path of Fire expansion and played through Living Story Season 4 Episode 1, then I would definitely check out the Palawadan meta events. That was pretty lucrative last time I'd played it. So there's a lot to do. Moving on to our next segment, and that is leveling further than level 80 with mastery tracks. Can you level further than level 80? Technically, yes. If you bought the Path of Fire or Heart of Thorns expansion, you get access to a new level bar. This is the Mastery level bar. Masteries give you a lot of different advantages. For example, it allows you to auto-loot enemies. Next to that, they can also give you more survivability in Fractals of the Mists. But it also allows you to glide with a glider and ride mounts. To upgrade or level your Mastery track, you'll basically have to level like you normally did. Choose a mastery track, level up and confirm that you want to spend your mastery points on this specific track. Oh, mastery points. Totally forgot about those. Mastery points can be obtained from almost everywhere. You'll get them from playing the story, doing achievements, and like hero points and vistas, you can find them all across the world. Getting the mastery track maxed out takes quite some time, but most advantages are really useful in the long run. If you want to get into raiding and successfully do some meta events, then you'll certainly need some mastery tracks maxed out. I personally found it very satisfying to unlock these masteries and it didn't feel like much of a grind. Just pick the ones you really need right now. Max those out and get the rest by playing through the rest of the game. Also, keep in mind that most of the things you do in Guild Wars 2 are account wide. So, unlocking masteries on one character also unlocks them for all of your current characters and future characters on your account. This means that you don't have to redo everything when you create a new character. This also means that you can ride mounts and glide on a fresh level 1 character if you unlocked it on another character on your account. Alright, moving on to my favorite game type right now. And that game mode is Raids. Raids is exactly what you think it would be, but it's a little different from other games. For me, raiding is the ultimate endgame right now. This is because to properly raid you'll need quite a couple of things. For example, you need to ride gear, which is ascended gear or legendary gear with specific stats for your build. But you'll also need to know the tactics for each of the bosses. Unlike other games like World of Warcraft, most raid bosses are not about the damage you do, but more about the tactics you apply. Damage is still a priority though. This is because you will only have 10 minutes to kill a raid boss. But raid bosses in Guild Wars 2 are mostly about tactics and mechanics. Usually it involves a part of your group splitting off to take care of the mechanics and the survival of the rest of the squad. This is all while the rest of the team makes sure they do enough damage to trigger the next phase of the boss. Currently we have 5 wings in the game, which in total have 19 bosses and events. Also, every wing has its own separate story and achievements tied to it. From time to time, ArenaNet releases new wings to the game. I think they do it like quarterly or every 6 months or something. It varies quite a lot if you look at the release date of the raid wings. Usually you'll need this time to clear a boss and learn its mechanics if you're not a hardcore raider. But what about the rewards? For every raid boss you'll defeat, you'll also get a legendary insight, which can be used in legendary armor. This legendary insight can also be used to show other players your experience in raids. This allows you to join experienced groups, so hold on to these. Defeating a raid boss will usually grant you one exotic item or sometimes even an ascended item. The most important reward for me are magnetite shards and gating crystals. The Heart of Thorns raids grant magnetite shards and the Path of Fire raids grant gating crystals. For every attempt to defeat a raid boss, you will be granted magnetite shards or gating crystals, depending on the boss. Even if you don't defeat the boss, you will still get some of the currency. You can spend this currency at vendors inside the raid. These vendors will sell you ascended armor and weapons with selectable stats. So, if you raid, you can basically get another ascended set for your profession or for your alt character. Right now, I'm saving up my gating crystals because I want an item called Shrouded Bench of the Final Judge. If you fought Doom in Wing 5, you know what I'm talking about. It's basically an item that allows you to summon a throne where your character can sit on. I personally find it one of the coolest items in the game right now. One little side note about raids though. Raids can sometimes be really difficult, but are not entirely impossible. Don't expect to defeat a raid boss on your first try when you're just new to raids in Guild Wars 2. Usually it gets easier the more you try it. Another thing with raiding is that it usually requires you and your team to be very coordinated and that you have to run a specific build to succeed. I personally love it to work as a team this way and like this defeat the boss, but that's entirely up to you. The last side note I have is that you can only do the raid bosses once a week per account. I would love to do them more often, but sadly it's not implemented this way. But I do understand ArenaNet's point of view on this. This way people won't farm the raids to get exclusive and prestigious rewards. Don't be discouraged to try it though. There are a lot of initiatives that host training runs for new players. There's a guild and a Discord server for people that want to join these training runs. From my own experience, this usually leads to defeating a raid boss. So I would definitely have a look at those. I'll have a link to those pages for EU and NA in the description. Also keep an eye out on the Snowcrows and Meta Battle websites to stay up to date for the latest builds for raids. And that wraps up this top 5 video. If you have any questions, suggestions or something else you want to get off your chest, please leave it in the comments. If you think this video was helpful, please consider subscribing, liking and sharing this video with your guildies. It helps me out a lot if you do so. Oh, and don't forget to check out my other videos, you might like them. Thank you all so much for watching and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace!